All right, we are live on YouTube. Hi, Brenda.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining me, especially on World Maternal Mental Health Day. I really am really excited to chat with you and kind of help raise awareness on an issue that has touched both of our hearts and our lives and our community. We are live on YouTube. Sorry about that. And I appreciate everything you've done in the community. You know, you've a Fort Wayne native, IU grad. You have really just blown it out of the water as far as community involvement and leadership. And so I really appreciate everything you've done. But stepping away from that kind of as a leader and looking at your role as a mom, I'd love to hear kind of your take on both of those perspectives as a mom and as somebody who has been working with, maternal mental health and mental health in our own community. So,
Well, first of all, thank you. Thanks for having me on. When you invited me to come on and have this important conversation, as you know, I jumped at the opportunity because anytime we can talk about mental health, mental illness, maternal mental health, we have to get the stories out there. We have to at some point normalize this conversation. I've been involved with mental health issues for 30 plus years. It's been a long journey and we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. And the more we talk about it, the more stories we tell, the more women who understand that a lot of women suffer in silence, the more women will get help. And that's what we want. We want to normalize it. So thank you for inviting me to have this important conversation with you.
Of course, of course. Well, I'd love to kind of hear your journey as a mom and any experience that you might have had yourself with mental illness, maternal mental illness, anything like that. Let's just start there. Let's start at the beginning.
We'll start there. I've had the privilege. I've had two children. I have a daughter who now lives in San Francisco and a son that lives in New York City. And I'm now a stepmother to two beautiful children. Matter of fact, when I was dating my now husband, when we were dating, he would say to me, "Now, you love me as much as my kids, right?" Because I truly fell in love with his children really soon. They're just really special kids. So I get to have the privilege of being mom to four, which has been really, really special. But, going back to when I was pregnant with both of my children, my pregnancies were really easy. I had easy pregnancies. I worked through them. I worked through them both. My daughter was an easy birth, and I had an easy time after that. I had a miscarriage between my daughter and my son that resulted in a DNC, and that was something that was happening so fast, and and when I look back on that, I don't know if I really ever processed it. That it was one of those things that I had never really even met a woman that had one, let alone like had this conversation about it. I just know that when I was carrying my second child that I had lost it. When I went to my doctor, she said, we're going to have to do a DNC. It was something that it wasn't a conversation that my girlfriends had at dinner. So, kind of went through that, but never really talked about it. And then soon after was pregnant with my second, my son, and had a really easy pregnancy again. And it was after the pregnancy, and it was my lack of support. I just didn't have my now ex-husband. He worked 7 days a week. So here I had two little ones, 2 years apart, almost to the day. And I was trying to do everything on my own. And, we get such messages as women that that's just the way it is. And at least those are the messages that I had gotten, that this was supposed to be easy and that I could manage two little ones on my own. I was a stay-at-home mom at that time, but just didn't have support. So we'll go back and talk about that because that's something that I really want to reinforce to women is to ask for help.
Mhm.
I said to earlier before we went live that, we have a lot of brain diseases in my family. My youngest brother was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia when he was 18 years old. I was a brand new mom. I just found out I was pregnant when
Mhm.
he was diagnosed. And that kind of led me down a path of being a mental health advocate, and not just an advocate, but an outspoken advocate. Because I'm not gonna like stop
Mhm.
until we finally get this normalized.
Yeah.
So that was a long answer, and I could just keep going because I'm just so passionate about this topic. But
Yeah.
I am deeply committed to helping women who suffer with mental health issues
Mhm.
get the help they need.
And one of the things that's really amazing is you helped to co-found the Carriage House. Can you kind of talk about what brought you to that point and how that all kind of conspired?
Yeah, absolutely. When my brother was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, I'm going to say, I always lose track of the time because it's been so long, but I'm going to say 35 years ago when my brother was diagnosed, people literally did not talk about mental illness, like did not. There were still institutions. They were still doing ECT treatments with the shock therapy. It
Mhm.
wasn't something that people talked about. It was hidden.
Mhm.
Families didn't talk about it. They shipped kids off. I mean, it just wasn't
Mhm.
something that we did. And my parents, they're both in the medical field, and they were resolute in their decision that they were going to do whatever it took to help my brother.
Mhm.
And they truly modeled that behavior for me.
Mhm.
My mom literally filled 18 journals from beginning to end of everything she was learning. But when my brother was first diagnosed, they thought it was drugs. Maybe he was doing hallucinogenics. He was in college. He was a freshman. And the first treatment center was a rehab center. But unfortunately, he just kept getting worse.
Mhm.
So we took him to Duke University, and he was diagnosed as schizophrenic. Like, I didn't even know what schizophrenia meant.
Mhm.
I was 28 years old, and here I have my brother who was, we draw a line in the sand before he was sick and after he was sick, and it completely changed the direction of our lives.
Wow.
I've said with mental illness, it isn't something you wake up on a Wednesday morning and go, I'm just going to get involved.
Mhm.
You're touched by it, and when 1 out of 5 families is touched by a major mental illness, there's a
Mhm.
lot of people now that are involved now that they're
Mhm.
talking about it. But it led us in a journey. So in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where my parents lived, I lived, and my brother, there were no resources. I mean, absolutely no resources. No, there were resources for people who were homeless,
Mhm.
which is often a byproduct of mental illness. But there
Mhm.
wasn't any really resources for people who had major mental illnesses. And, it was my mom and dad's, their quest to have something here in our community that would kind of solve that issue. And, really our dream is that we wanted to have like people come together to support one another. I mean, the
Mhm.
dream was pretty small. The dream was let's find a location where other people can come together who have similar issues, and let's create a program.
Mhm.
Well, that little program, I mean, I always when I talk about it, I mean, God got a hold of our idea and just, and just blew it up. Because I think as we were going along the journey, the idea was small. And then mom and dad met other people through NAMI, which is our mental health association, one of them here in our community. And there were other parents who wanted to join forces. And there were several families, 3 or 4 families, that said, let's bring this rehabilitation model to Fort Wayne.
Mhm.
My father purchased the house on Lake Avenue. And that was the beginning of the Carriage House. And, we were so naive. I mean, we raised millions of dollars, and we didn't even know what we were doing.
Mhm.
All we knew is that we needed to get it done.
Mhm.
And so that was part of our secret sauce, is that we had no idea what we were doing. We knew that we had to do it. We knew
Mhm.
that this community and the people that lived here deserved to have that for their loved ones, for children. And the Carriage House was born. I mean, it's a very long story. I'm really shortening it, but it's just been an amazing journey to be a part of it. But
Mhm.
at first we were part of the yard crew. Like, I would cut the yard and pick up sticks and raise money and do fundraisers. And And we opened the doors in 1997, and I think we had a half a dozen members. And
Wow.
now we serve over 1,600 members in the community and have 12 full-time staff.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That's
so it's been really
tremendous. Wow.
yeah, a lot of that credit, so much of it goes to Andy Wilson, our executive director,
Hmm.
and our board of directors. We have one of the finest board of directors of any organization that I've been a part of, and
Wow.
our executive team with Tom Weir. I mean, they're just amazing human beings, and our members. That's
Hmm.
what we call the people who come to the carriage house. They take care of one another. It's a family, and it's
Hmm.
really special to watch.
That's awesome. And I know you guys usually have an event. It's the dancing, it's kind of like Dancing with the Stars, right? Is
Yes, Dancing with the Fort Wayne Stars.
yeah.
Yes, this is our 15th year. It's in November. It's the first Thursday in November. And
Hmm.
I have wrangled a lot of people. I have done a lot of arm twisting for people to dance, and I'm actually dancing this year. So I've actually made the decision to dance. So
That's
yeah,
exciting.
that is exciting.
So,
I'm really looking forward to raising a lot of money for mental health
uh,
programming at the Carriage House. So
well,
looking forward to that.
that's awesome. And one of the things that I kind of keep saying, well, specifically about maternal mental health, but mental health really, I mean, it affects everyone,
Everyone.
even to your point about homelessness. I mean, there's a mental health aspect of homelessness. There's mental health or concerns with mothering, and fathers having postpartum depression, and you know babies not getting the proper touch and attention, and it's all starts it just affects everybody. That's the point.
Everybody.
So it's a tremendous resource for our community to be able to take people who in the past may have been just kept away or not spoken of, and take them, and they have value, they have a voice, they have a purpose, and give them that, and bring them into the community. And that's just a really awesome resource for
Thank you
us.
very
So
much. I appreciate you
yeah.
indulging me, letting me talk about
Yeah.
it.
Of course.
It is so special to me.
Well, let's, one of the, as you're kind of talking about the carriage house, and I love that concept, and something that, just to add on to that, there's this new concept, and I don't know if it's relatively a new concept. My background isn't in, you know, psychology or that sort of thing, but I've been doing a lot of reading, a lot of research. And there's these new programs kind of across the country, which it has kind of maybe the same formula as the carriage house, but it's the Motherhood Center in New York, and I think Pine Rest up in Michigan. And it's basically these homes or these centers where mothers with postpartum issues can come rehabilitate with their baby. It's maybe a day program or a really intensive program for a week. They have the baby, they can go home, but it's the same concept, and they're spreading all kind of around these days of the nation. And one of my dreams, we talked about how I just completely admire everything done, and I think in the future bring something like that to Fort Wayne to help mothers educate them prior to postpartum, during their pregnancy and after their pregnancy, as a complete resource, not just a pregnancy class, I mean, which they're great, like that's great. But a complete full package resource, like kind of embracing mom. I think that's something that could be completely great resource. And we have support groups and we have things in Fort Wayne, which are great blocks, but I think in that same vein, taking like-minded people who have the same concepts and issues, and bringing them all together, I think that's a really beautiful, solution to
Well, if there's
helping.
anyone that can do it, Jennifer, you can. I do hope you follow that dream. I really do, because that's how it starts. It
Mhm.
starts by somebody who's been affected by it, and then they just are, they just make the decision that this is what I'm going to do, and they're unstoppable. I think that's
Mhm.
how most things get done. People
I,
have a
I,
dream and they have a vision, and they just know that that's what our community needs, and then they just build it. and
Yeah.
you encourage and inspire other people to rally around you. And that's exactly what you're doing here is you're
Um,
allowing people to be honest about their journeys.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate, and I was just thinking about it while you were talking. So I appreciate that. And, who knows what the next few years will bring, but, so yeah, I would love to, one of the things we kind of talked about offline was you were a stay-at-home mom for a while and were continued to be involved with, different boards and aspects and kind of built your career. So I wonder if you have any kind of advice for moms like myself or, women who are trying to find that balance between career and being mom and bringing it all together. What do you
Yeah,
usually tell
no,
your
absolutely. And when we were talking before, actually, we went live, I was sharing that, for I was a stay-at-home mom for a while, and I raised my two children, and it was the greatest years of my life. I tell my kids all the time that my greatest job that I've ever had was being their mom, and it still is. I still want to mother them, right? They're like adults in my daughter's married. But it really truly was. I loved being a mom. I really did. But where I did get messed up, not kind of, is that when I was a really young mom and my husband was working 7 days a week and I was living in a little bitty house, there was a rental house and it was in the woods. I had one neighbor and I was far away from home and I didn't have any support and I didn't ask for any. I mean, I just
Mhm,
simply didn't. I just thought that, what, I could do this on my own. Well, the truth was, nobody can do it on their own. I mean, I think that
mhm,
women, we have these unrealistic expectations of ourselves. And it was a very lonely experience, even though I enjoyed going for walks with my kids and playing and just enjoyed all the stuff that moms do. There was also an element of it that was lonely and
mhm,
but I didn't want to admit it. I didn't want
mhm,
to admit that I maybe couldn't do this on my own, that I really and I know there's lots and lots of single moms out there. I mean, I was a
mhm,
single mom for 7 years after my divorce when my kids were finishing junior high and going into high school. But there's lots of single moms that do that alone and on their own. And even though I was married, it felt very much as a single mom. And I think if
mhm,
I look back, if I was really true to how I was feeling, I would have asked for help. And I
mhm,
think, Jennifer, I watched your TEDx talk twice. I read your Input magazine article this morning, the piece that was about you this morning in Input Fort Wayne.
mhm,
Totally inspired by your story. And I want to turn the tables on you just for a second. I want
mhm.
to know when that moment that you found the courage to ask for help.
Does it give me chills? It's a good question. And I think it was probably later in the game than most people. A lot of, my story kind of begins. I was in New York, 20 something, in love, working like crazy because I always said I went to New York to have a career. I didn't go to New York to have a family. That was something that I said in my early 20s. And so I never really thought that having a family would be in the cards. It was really something that I kind of thought would be a part of it. And so I was doing well in my career. I found out I was pregnant, super scared, excited, but scared. I didn't really have at that point a really good community around me. My my ex-husband was an amazing and really supportive, but at the same time, um, I didn't have close friends. I didn't have close family around that I felt like I could kind of express myself. And it goes back to would I have even asked for help,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I don't know. There were days where I was just crying by myself and then someone call and you just wipe your tears away
Oh,
and you're
yeah,
like,
no, I'm fine.
everything's fine. I'm good. Thank you. But I think, when I had my son and it was really traumatic, and that has been, when I even say his birth was traumatic, I feel bad saying that because
Sure.
you want to say my son's birth
Oh,
was
it was
beautiful.
wonderful in rainbows.
Yeah. And it was because it was his birth and it's our story.
Right.
but, looking back, I didn't kind of process it the way that I could have. And there were so many steps through it that I thought I had failed. Like there was C-section, there was trouble breastfeeding, there was trouble bonding. Like it just couldn't seem like I was getting a break. And I used to say at work, I went back into work full steam. I didn't even really think about kind of pulling back. I remember even in the recovery room after the surgery, I was on my BlackBerry because, yeah, like my son, they took him to the nursery because he was just a little bit too little. So they had to take him to the nursery to just monitor him a little bit. But I'm on my BlackBerry and my boss is like, get off, like stop working. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so transitioning from work mom to like Jennifer mom was a really hard transition. And the point when I just knew that I wasn't myself and I wasn't okay. I mean, I was at work and I was 3 months away from the wedding. So my son was probably about a year old at that point. And it just seemed like everything just compounded. And it was just complete panic and anxiety. And I pretty much, you stop taking care of yourself and little things tip you off and you just can't handle even like little issues.
Right.
And I just remember going to the doctor and just him saying, he said something, I think even moms need wives, I think, or something like that. Like this concept that moms need to be taken care of, like moms need moms. Because he was just shocked that I even like showed up in the kind of like manner that I was. And at that point, he had given me, just gave me some medicine. At that point, he gave me Zoloft. I was seeing a therapist at the time, but that wasn't helping at all, unfortunately. So it was just that moment where you realize, like, I can't live like this. This isn't me, and this isn't who I want to be.
Right.
I talk a lot too about when I had. Now I'm going on and on. Now.
And I'm loving it. I want you to keep telling your story because
Okay.
I think it's so important. I really do. I like literally had lost track as I was listening so intently. I really, and I've heard your story 3 or 4 times, and I still every time I hear it because it really does empower other women. Like I
Yeah.
say this all the time when I speak. Women, we've got to be good to one another.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have to listen. I call it soft eyes. Like I have
Mm-hmm.
to listen to your story with soft eyes, knowing that this was real in your life.
Yeah.
And it was, I call them mountains. This was one of your mountains that you climbed. And
Yeah.
now you get the opportunity to reach back and help so many other women.
Exactly. I think, my sister and I talk about this a lot because there was a point. So I had my second son, and went back to work, and I just constantly struggled with, do I want to be in New York? Do I want to be home? Who am I as a mom? Like, what is going on? And I constantly struggled. And in 2015, I just hit a breaking point. I just burned out,
Yep.
and I had to move home. And that was a really powerful time. It was really hurt a lot of people. It was just a really transitional time, and it's something I don't really talk about. Now look at what you've done. I'm sorry. I always have to break some ice with humor. No, but and I think that was just all part of it. I think I was struggling before I had my son. I was struggling when I had my son to find my identity, and continuing to put on a face and having good moments. Like I say, it wasn't all doom and gloom. I had plenty of beautiful, fun, good times, but in the back of your mind, you're fighting a battle, and at that point, I just decided it's time for me to make a decision and, move forward. But I think I got used to just kind of putting on the face and going through the motions and, thinking I'm doing what's best for everybody. As women, we put ourselves, last, because especially when you have kids then in picture, you want to just think you're doing the best thing. And you just have to make really tough decisions
Right.
as a mom. And yeah, so one of the things too that we had kind of touched on in the story was my mom had, or not my mom, but when I had gotten really sick, or I couldn't, I didn't have enough dehydrated. Yeah, it was the paramedic who, I just wanted to tell her. I remember when we were walking out of the house, I just wanted to scream, like, I'm not okay. Like,
Not
I'm
okay.
not okay. And
Right.
she just kind of, she must have felt it. I'm not sure what it was, but she was like, you need to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And that's really what changed it. And my ex-husband, or husband at the time, was just the same way. Like, this is enough. Like, yeah.
You know what? I always say that, like when you get to that point, you've
Mhm.
stayed strong too long,
Yeah.
and women we stay strong and we
Mhm.
stay strong too long. And it's not
Mhm.
like people, I think, want to turn it into a weakness. I think it's just you've stayed strong too long. Like
Yeah.
you can't sustain that. It's not sustainable.
Mhm.
So, and it is the strong who get help,
Yeah.
because I think that they know that there's a better way of life. And I always equate it to living on a moving platform. I've always
Mhm.
said that, like, when life gets really tough, it's like trying to balance on something that's moving, and you're
Mhm.
constantly trying to stay balanced, and it keeps throwing you off, and you're
Mhm.
fighting to stay balanced, and you get to the point where you fought to stay balanced for so long that you no
Mhm.
longer have the energy to do it.
Yeah.
And when you finally can get your footing, you finally start living, because you don't have to, you don't fight, like as you did it. You described it much more eloquently than I am. But it's, you get to a point where you're like waving the white flag, like, I can't do it anymore. But you
Yeah.
probably knew that a year before, but thought, oh, it's going to get better. It's just gonna
Yeah.
get better, and I can do this.
Yeah. I can do it if I just change this, or if I just change that. I remember we got a dog, and I thought that would help, and that didn't help. And
Right.
like, you try and find all these little solutions, and really it's just because you're just not dealing with the fact that
Right.
you need help.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's hard. And I really sympathize with women who are kind of in a space, or listening right now, or listen in the future, who, you know, it's hard. I want to say, like, if you're having trouble, reach out.
Yes.
But you can only do that when you're ready. And I think we were talking about that too. Like, when you're ready, you will do it. And sometimes people might hear this story, or our stories, and they might hear it, but they might not be ready. And, we need to be them, and be there for them, and embrace them when they're ready, you know?
Right.
So,
No. And that's so true when you talk about that. But I think shame and stigma keep,
mhm,
keep women from getting the help they need. And again, we
mhm,
go back to the beginning of the conversation. If we normalize it, when I listened to Leslie Hill and her story, and when I listened to Anne Marie, both great interviews, I was just
mhm,
applauding, just from my family room. If we can just keep having these conversations, I think for our children's children, that women
mhm,
won't have to go through the struggle of, can I do it on my own? How much longer can I stay strong? Or, that they'll ask for help earlier, that they don't
mhm,
get to the point of crashing, that
mhm,
they'll identify that self-care much earlier in the process.
mhm. Yeah, and we have to be, role models for them, and sharing that. And you never think that you're going to have part of, I've spoken to a lot of people about postpartum, and a lot of the things that some people say is, we don't really stay on it, or we don't really speak a lot about it, because we don't want to scare new moms. And it's like, well, we don't need to shy away. We don't have to speak about it like it's the end of the world, but we need to speak about it like it could happen, and it's okay,
Right.
and
Oh,
this
I
is
can
what's
remember
going to
being shamed
happen.
about my epidural. I was in a Lamaze class, and I think
Uh-huh.
there were like 9 women in my Lamaze class, and I think 7 of them were going to do natural births. And it just wasn't something I was interested in. And I mean,
Mhm.
I think I hit the hospital room, and I'm like, where's my epidural? And I laugh about it now, but that took courage, because I felt
Mhm.
pressure that I had to be like all the other women. But it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't ever, I never really felt like that's what I needed to do or wanted to do.
Mhm.
So as long as we can tell women, like, it's up to you,
Yeah.
whatever feels right for you, because I think we all know in our hearts what is
Mhm.
right for us, but oftentimes
Mhm.
we make decisions that are best for others, and that's when we get in
Uh,
trouble.
yeah. Yeah, 100%. Because and that's what we're, told to do is, take care of others and that's what we model. I think my mom is a beautiful example of that. She's just one of the most selfless people that I know. And for me, it's a beautiful thing. It's also, you know, very exhausting. Like
Right,
it's
right.
just, but yeah, it's just constant. So it's giving a different voice. One of my favorite quotes is if you don't like what people are saying, change the conversation. It's a Mad Men episode. But it's just really true because if we're not getting anywhere, if women are still suffering, and we talked about maternal mortality, which is something that we could
Oh,
just for hours on.
right.
Um, if the stories aren't getting heard, if we're not reaching the right audience, if we're not talking to the right people, then we're never going to change the conversation.
Right,
So that's
right.
why, like, I love, this concept is kind of like, what if we just talk to people on weeknights this week,
I love that.
and yeah, and had them share their stories, and let's see what happens. And I think it's a great opportunity for people to continue and to really just change that conversation and perception.
I definitely, I told you this to begin with. You know this because we've had lunch together, but I just admire you so much. Any woman who's brave enough to step out, to share their story, to talk about, that for to help other women, like,
Hmm.
that takes a lot of courage. I know that it does. And
Hmm.
you just have to keep going. I, I,
Hmm.
I just encourage you to keep these conversations going long after this week, because I
Yeah.
think this is something that needs to be this just needs to be, again, I feel like a broken record, but it needs to be normalized. And the more we talk about it, and the more women who know that it's okay, and that they
Hmm.
can identify with the stories, then the more we have people who can just they don't have to carry that baggage for so long.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have been thinking that maybe this will be a weekly conversation because just in my head, I was like, five people off the top of my head who I haven't spoken to, who I'd like to speak to, who could
Yes.
talk about what they're doing and their experiences. And so I think we will continue this. And I admire you so much, and just everything you're doing and your story and your advocacy for mental health and for moms and women everywhere. So I
Well,
appreciate
thank
that.
you. It is just truly, it's truly what I'm passionate about. I mean,
Hmm.
and I've been doing it for a long time, and
Hmm.
I'm not going to stop. I mean,
Hmm.
when my brother died when he was 29, and I remember people telling me, even at his funeral, that I could step out of this world, that I didn't have to do it anymore. And you know what? I think we doubled down. I mean,
Hmm.
I felt like, to honor my brother Chad, I was just going to keep going. And
Hmm.
then women's mental health is really what I'm most passionate about.
Hmm.
It's really women in addiction, women in mental health. Like talking now, it comes at all different forms, whether it's maternal mental health, or whether it's addiction and mental health. And then you combined addiction and maternal mental
Hmm.
health. Something I work with young moms
Hmm.
who are pregnant, who are also dealing with addiction. And
Hmm.
that's a whole nother category of women you know, trying to kind of figure it all out, as if pregnancy is not hard enough, but then trying to break an addiction
Hmm.
during that time, wanting the baby, to be healthy. So that's why I encourage you. You just have to keep the conversation going. There's so many topics around
Yeah.
this one area of
Mhm.
mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. Leslie, spoke about the loss that she had as with the child, and that's a whole another population.
Yep.
Women who have miscarriages still today do not get to have the conversations that they need to have or process a miscarriage, or a stillborn child certainly does
Oh my
not get.
goodness, women who can't get pregnant, or go years trying, or I mean, there's so many things, Jennifer.
Yeah.
There's so many things that need to be talked about.
Hmm.
And I think there's a lot of brave women out there who will share their stories.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I so appreciate your time tonight. is there anything you want to add or anything you want to leave us with, or?
No, you know what? I just appreciate the opportunity.
Okay.
I really do. Any opportunity that we can
Mm-hmm.
to talk about mental health and mental illness and furthering the conversation in our community, I'm all in. So anything I can do, you just have to let me know.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I was looking forward to this all day.
So was I. So was I. Matter of
All
fact,
right.
I took my parents dinner and I said
Uh,
to my father, like, I've got to go. Like, I got to go. And he just kind of looked at me and I said, yes, I'm talking about mental health tonight. He's like, okay, go, go. So yeah, we're all in this together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, again, I appreciate it. And, I'm sure we'll talk soon for sure.
You got it. Thank you. Have
All
a good
right.
evening.
Thank you, Brenda.
Okay.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.